Hello YouTube, welcome to the review video of Monster Hunter World. It is out currently on Xbox One and PS4. As for you PC folk, you still don't have a date from what I can tell. It's just still slated for the fall of 2018. I think everyone's kind of thinking September, but there's still no official date unfortunately at the time of this video when recording. First off, a little bit of background. I'd never played a Monster Hunter game, but I've known of the franchise. This is pretty much Japan's Call of Duty, and I mean that in a good sense. I mean, like, when a Monster Hunter game comes out, this shit sells over there like hotcakes. I was first technically exposed to Monster Hunter on Metal Gear Peace Walker for the console port, because I didn't have any handheld games that I played, or handhelds in general. I was poor back then. But there were a couple missions there where you fought Rathalos and Tigrex on there. And so far in the game, I have the image of how many hours I've currently played, etc. right now. Farming and all the other side shit I keep getting distracted with. But I still haven't experienced everything the game has to offer. There's still augmentations that I haven't gotten to yet. I believe my Hunter rank is 49. I don't have it up right now. This is me commentating over gameplay. So I don't know, but I believe it's 49 right now, so I'm not all the way up there yet. But I've pretty much fought every monster currently. You currently have a free one coming out, Devil Ho. So that'll be interesting. Starting off, let's get into the story aspect of Monster Hunter World. For the story of the game, it's more of just an introduction and a guide to, hey, go over here and kill this thing. This is what it is. Hey, there's a cool cutscene to kind of show you what it is. That's pretty much it. Don't expect, like, beautiful storytelling and all that. That's not here. That's just, it's, hey, see that thing over there? Go kill it. Got it. Now let's go over here and kill this other thing. Alright, got it. For those that also want to know, you are a silent protagonist. You don't say shit. Which, you know, has apparently always been the case in the Monster Hunter games, so it's not like to say anything new there. But for those wondering or curious, for some people it's a turn off. Well, you're a silent protagonist. What's really weird about silent dialogue, though, is apparently with some of the main characters, this is a thing. It's not like, I thought when it first happened it was a glitch or something, but with the main characters talking at the base for Astera, is like, they'll do like a sentence of dialogue spoken, and the next like 2 to 3 sentences they just go silent, and like it's weird because you think that the game's broken at first, and then you realize, oh, they're just not talking anymore in actual like language at all. It's just silent, which is a weird and off-putting. Until you get used to it, you just stop caring. It is a horrid experience trying to play with friends through these story missions, because everyone has to have seen the cutscene, and not like everyone parties together and then you go in and just watch the cutscene together. No, everyone has had to have seen the cutscene individually. And which, by the way, you can't skip cutscenes. You can't skip cutscenes. You can't skip credits. Which, again, it's a horrible first-time experience, and it can be very off-putting if you're trying to play with friends and everyone has to see this cutscene and then back out or go join someone else while they're trying to fight and stay alive, wait for their friends to get there. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Hunter gameplay, how you function, mostly. First off, there's so many weapons and outfits in the game. And saying off the bat of that, there is no god armor and no god weapon. You could play pretty much how you want to play, no matter what. If you want to go full, like, Dark Souls naked with a sword and shield, go right ahead. As long as you got the skill, you can do it. Skill really compensates you a lot in this game. If you got the skill to carry yourself, you can do it. If not, try to find good weapons and armor that are kind of upper tier. The gameplay also heavily encourages you and also kind of traps you with weapon choice. There are 14 weapon types. I haven't mastered all of them. I've played a good chunk of them. Currently I'm going through longsword phase, but my main so far has been dual blades and bows. I first picked up the Encyclave, which is really fun. I tried using the Buster swords, but they were too slow for my taste. But essentially there's a weapon for everyone here. But the problem I ran into is when you're trying to branch out to like test other weapons and then you really like the weapons, you want to craft like 5 different versions of that weapon now, and that requires a lot more farming of various monsters. It kind of like, it traps you with like, oh man, I like this now, But now I need like 3 different other longswords. I need one that's got poison, one fire, and all that. I need one that's got white sharpness. Fuck. They get you. They get you good. A slight side note, this is more of like an expectation level thing. This is just me. I'm not sure if it's anyone else, but I was slightly disappointed in some of the weapon looks. Until some of them get to rarity 8, which is the highest rarity currently in the game, is their look doesn't change drastically. You'll have like 2 or 3 that are the same look in a weapon tree, which is kind of disappointing. Just to me, I expected them all to look like crazy. Like some of the ones in the rarity 8, they look crazy and cool as shit. Don't get me wrong. I kind of like expected that for almost like every weapon, despite them not getting to that high of a rarity tier. Another thing is, this is again another thing that's subjective. It depends. It's not everyone's cup of tea. They don't explain shit in this game. They do barely any hand holding. Again, a la Dark Souls if you want a mainstream experience. Witcher 3 I think is more of a closer comparison, but Witcher 3 kind of told you a bit more things compared to this game. They don't tell you anything. Nothing at all. They don't tell you might want to adjust your camera and all that. They don't tell you about loadouts that, you know, it's really useful. There's even item loadouts that's really useful for refilling everything. They'll sometimes tell you other things, but it's very quick and you'll instantly forget about it until it maybe is brought up later on. Like, for instance, dun pods. I didn't know what they did for the longest time until there was actual, like, mission. I mean, there was a thing that popped up that told me, but I was probably I think I was in the middle of a fight, probably running from the damn T-Rex. And I didn't know again until there was a mission later on where they gave you dun pods and pretty much, like, told you, like, hey, you shoot this at a monster, it's going to go away, it fucks off, so you can, instead of a 2-on-1 fight, you can go back to 1-on-1. Which isn't a big deal in the beginning, but later on you'll find instances where monsters will constantly show up to throw your fight game off. Another enjoyable fact to the Hunter gameplay is the game just keeps unlocking. As I mentioned earlier, I still haven't gotten to the augmentation level of the game where you can now min-max gear, unlock more slots for more decorations or so, which eventually you unlock the ability to put decorations in weapons, which will help again boost stats of various things or give you perks, such as helping to boost immunity to poison and everything else. As I'm not going to name all like 50 million things they all do. There's also the high rank, as you spend a third of the game in low rank, which is kind of useless. Once you get to high rank, which is the last like 2/3 of the game pretty much, is what you're going to spend it in, based on my made up ratio there. But the game keeps progressing, and like just when you think you hit like the cap, it all of a sudden just keeps unlocking a bit more to grind for and go for. Which I guess is another thing to mention for the Hunter gameplay. Is the game is, of course, a bit grindy. You'll end up fighting the same monster about like 50 times. Easy if you're looking for like farming. And again, if you're like looking for like upgrading different weapons, yeah, you'll be killing a lot of monsters over and over again. Which brings me to another point, is that solo can get tiring at sometimes. I played most of this solo. I ended up actually taking a bit of a break, which I'm glad that my review is actually a little bit later. Because a game like this, I think, actually needs a lot more time spent into it. For those that don't know, my reviews are usually done within like a week of the game comes out. And with some games, that week, like if I played like another week or two, I would have realized a lot more faults in certain games, or realized certain games actually got a bit better. But solo is also a bit easier as difficulty scales when playing with other players, which I think it scales a bit too high when it's just 2 people. When it's like 3 or 4 people, it's barely noticeable and it kind of makes sense. But when it scales automatically 2 people, it just gets a little bit too much of a jump, in my opinion. I think it needs a little bit of tweaking. Could be wrong there, but monster parts break a lot easier when you're solo. And of course, as I mentioned, like the monster's technically at a much lower health than it is if you were to play with someone else. You also get a bit more of the game experience when you're solo, such as finding the Palico tribes and recruiting them, and doing missions for them, which you can't do when you get another player. Also, as long as it's not 3 players or more, you actually get to use your Palico and use their gadgets, which they have a couple gadgets that are actually really useful for, like, say, farming or just general buffs when you're fighting. But a caveat to that is I would say at least definitely get out there and start playing with other players, because odds are with other players you'll at least start to see them show off weapon gameplay of like weapons you don't know that you may or may not like. For instance, I really liked what I saw from some gun lance users and lance users. It's a weapon that's a little, again, slow for me, but I wouldn't mind trying to learn it at some point. And another one that's really cool that, again, I haven't learned it. The only reason I haven't learned this one is because, again, I don't want to farm another 50 monsters trying to get a good variant for myself, is the Hunter Horn, which provides buffs for both yourself and your teammates. So essentially you fill that niche if your Pelika wasn't there, and along with the fact that you're also technically hitting the monster and doing damage. It's really cool just to see other players use it. So, like, something that you may be too scared to try out and see for yourself in an actual hunt, you see someone else use, and it's good. It's a cool experience. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the other main stars of the game, the monsters themselves, the monster gameplay. Really cool new designs and returning monsters to this. Again, I haven't played Monster Hunter, but I've known with the other ones. The staple one, Rathalos, Rathian are in here. They've practically been in all of them before, and of course they got other really cool original design ones. Legion is a really beautiful creature with really pretty fucking armor and weapons, in my opinion. And pretty much each monster is going to test your abilities, and certain monsters in the game, via the story and such, kind of serve as a passing point, like milestone that you achieve once you've beaten this monster. For instance, the first one you're going to get is the T-Rex. That fucker is going to challenge your ass until you finally either farm enough to beat him yourself, or you just do the story mission, or get to the story mission, and that's where you're forced to fight him. And the moment you beat him, you realize like how much you've like improved and like learned up until that point. And then like until you get to another area, and then another monster is going to serve as that, like Nergigante or someone else. So pretty much the monster that's kicking your butt is going to serve as the milestone for how much you improve in the game, and it's really like an achievement feeling status of fighting the monster and then finally overcoming it, and then you go fight another 49 times. Now, some of the monsters have questionable hitboxes. I'm specifically looking at you, Nergigante. You fucking know I am. But I won't get into his attack patterns and everything. They switch it up, of course, they have in this game tempered versions of monsters, which will switch up their attack patterns and have more damage done. For instance, Baroth, who was an early monster you encounter, he has a mud attack he can do that if he goes into the mud spots and rolls around in it, he'll be covered in mud. So his damage, weaknesses to elements is changed, but also he can now do a thing where he shakes off said mud, and now he has little mud traps that will trap you to where if he gets the chance to, he'll try and attack you while you're stuck in there. The tempered version of him is always practically covered in mud, so he gets to spam that attack a lot more, and of course on top of the fact that now when he hits you, it's going to be like a ton of bricks now. You can also hunt for multiple monsters at once, whether you're in the expedition or you pick up investigations that have you kill more than one monster. The monster gameplay, they scale down their health for when it is multiple monsters, which investigations are also really cool. They change up the usual, faint 3 times, mission failed, or 50-minute time limit. They'll some of them will lower the time limit, some will raise the time limit. Actually, no, they don't go past 50 minutes, but it's usually 15, 30, 50-minute hunts. They'll raise the amount of feints, between 1, 3, and 5. But also with that, the rewards for the investigations are more rewarding than, say, the story missions, considering they have different rarity. And of course, with the investigation, you are hunting a specific monster, and you can do it a set amount of times before you have to pick up a new investigation. This category is pretty much miscellaneous comments I have about the game. Some involve some of the online gameplay and some of the other features I didn't think fit into the main comments of the hunter, monsters, and the story. First point to touch up upon, your Pelika is adorable as shit. I love that little bastard so much. Whenever I got parts from a monster, if he was able to make a set of armor, that little bastard knew he was getting it first. He knew I was going to spend the materials on him first because A, it's cheap, and B, he's just adorable in like 80% of the armor. He just is. It's facts. You can't fight it. Unless you're a dog person, I guess. The Gathering Hub seems almost entirely wasted. The Gathering Hub in the game is where you can physically see the other players, kind of interact with each other, do emotes, arm wrestling's up there, tables and all that you can sit. It's also the location of the arena quests, which a lot of people don't know about, from what I can understand, because that person's only up there. They're not downstairs in Astera, which I think Astera should have also been a social space, because it's just big. It's big and it's got a lot of space in it where you got random NPCs running around. And it's got the one thing that the Gathering Hub's missing, which is if the Gathering Hub had a smithy, you bet your ass everyone would be probably going to the Gathering Hub. But because that's not up there, there's no point in going up there because Astera's got the only spot in the game with which you can upgrade and look at weapons. Speaking of Astera, when interacting with the characters there for when you gotta pick up bounties, interact with the canteen for food, or the smithy, again, for upgrades and all, you're gonna go through dialogue. Like 3 to 4 lines of dialogue every single time that they don't speak, like I mentioned before. This is one of the ones they don't speak about, or speak through, I mean. And it pops up every single time. And when you get through like the millionth time of skipping through dialogue, you either grow numb to it or you still become very irritated by it. Especially when you back out by accident and then you gotta go sit there and click it through because they don't go through it automatically. You gotta hit A every time to get through the dialogue, and it gets irritating very fast. The armory, there's an armory vendor in the game. They're useless. I barely use them for anything. There's no point in buying the armor, especially because it's low rank. In fact, they might have high rank, but it's like trash. It's bad. There's no point. I don't know why they're there unless they manage to patch in the ability to either buy maybe some materials from them, or they just have better armor. A feature I don't like is penalized rewards overall for the death of other hunters. If someone else is more new and they're, hunting with other players and then they die, that goes A against your counts overall. So if you had a quest that you fail 3 times, someone gets killed, well now you only got 2 feints left overall before the hunt is failed. You also get lower rewards every time someone has fainted. And I don't like that for when there's novice hunters or someone did a dumb move, someone doesn't know what they're fighting and they get killed because of it. I don't like how I'm penalized for it. It makes sense if they're penalized. This is a personal thing. I don't think I should be penalized for someone else's mistakes. In that sense. Is that selfish? Yes. Slightly. But I'm right. I wish they had an in-game, wiki or, Grimmer card sense. I wish there were more details on the monsters that we can dive into without going online or so. They're just so cool. And there's a lot of background for a lot of these monsters, especially the ones that are, returning ones. There's so much information on them that I've had because I did a top 10 video that I ended up running into a lot of information. It'd be really cool if there was some more in game for those that were curious to learn about more of the monsters or the world that we're in. And I didn't mention in the beginning on what console I was playing on. I've been playing on the Xbox One X, and I'm not saying that as a spite thing, I'm playing on the Xbox One X, I'm superior to you. No, I only say that to my friends to just be a sarcastic asshole to them. But it matters a lot more with Monster Hunter and what you're playing on because the PlayStation has had a lot of exclusive quests going on, which it makes sense because PlayStation is pretty much all anyone plays on in Japan. They don't really play on the Xboxes a lot over there. They're a very minuscule market, and of course PlayStation, and it's not just the excuse that PlayStation is ahead in the console market, but they've had a lot of exclusive quests going on for both cosmetic skins and everything else, and there's kind of been no love shown the Xbox way. I'm not saying that we should get something, but it would be nice if we got something. It actually wouldn't be the first time a Capcom game has done that. They've actually done it with Lost Planet. I believe it was 2, the second one, where they had Gears of War skins for characters there because it was a 2-player game, so of course you could be Marcus and Dom for skins. So it wouldn't be the first time. I'm not saying it's a requirement, but it'd be nice to just share a little love coming our way. It's worth noting, if you're one of those people, that there is micro DLC. What I mean by micro DLC, because I think we need to start differentiating between microtransactions and DLC and all that, which kind of also technically fall in the same category. But what I mean by micro DLC is that there are emotes, and eventually there'll be skins you could buy that are cosmetic. They go over your character's armor that kind of disguise what you're wearing. But they have no effect on gameplay. Some emotes actually do a little bit of damage to monsters, but it's so minuscule it's actually not effective, and they're actually kind of cool. They have the Street Fighter ones now. You can actually do the Hadouken to monsters. And either way, it's kind of a slippery slope. And it depends what you view. They are definitely not required. I haven't bought them myself. I totally could because I am terrible with spending money on video games. But if you're a person that's kind of against that, it's not there and in your face a whole lot. And again, they're not going to charge for monsters and everything else. Those are supposed to be free. But for someone to keep an eye on all that, this is a game that does have this micro DLC, microtransactions in it. There's no loot box or anything else like that. But they have it where what you see is what you get. And again, because it's in my notes, they are going to have free monsters. The first one's actually very close by at the time of recording this review. I believe it's March 22nd is going to be the Devil Ho. And I'm not sure how many more monsters they're going to bring in. I hope they do bring in more monsters, as it's going to be great for more the casual crowd or so, or like the the always hungry mindset of Western gaming. I should say that we always want to keep playing. We need something to keep us engaged. But I'm sure at this point, anyone still playing Monster Hunter is still like they're committed to it, and even some of the core fan base might tire out at some point if they don't have new shit to engage. And again, bringing up the grinding point, the game is extremely grindy, particularly later on. It doesn't appear as bad first off, but it's when you start learning, mastering other stuff, that the grind becomes increasingly more difficult and time-consuming. But I will say the grind, this seemed the most rewarding grind I've played in a game. Even if it's stuff I didn't get, I still got materials, or at least in the early on stages, I got experience in learning how the monster functions, getting used to its telltale signs of when it's going to attack and everything else. So it's a grind, but at least definitely in the beginning, it feels like a much more rewarding grind. Something worth note that's from the previous games is there's no G rank currently, which is the ultra hard mode of the game. Which this is a game hard enough for some people, but I know if some of the hardcore fan base that might be waiting for it on PC at this current time, there's no G rank. And with as impressive as much of a biome diversity we got in this one, I feel like it's still like missing one or two of these ones where if we either got an ice biome or a heavily water populated one for an expansion. I'm not sure if they'll do one later on, but it feels like one of those is missing just because there's a whole segment of monsters that are dedicated to living in those biomes from the previous games that of course aren't being utilized here because there's no underwater combat, or it's not an ice biome where those things can live in. It doesn't make sense if you see a snow ape in the forests of the ancient forest. And I'm finally almost done talking your ear off if you're still here with me. We're getting to the rating of the game. First off, I'll explain my rating system. My rating system is, of course, a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. I use a half-point system also. So if I think a game is pretty good but it hasn't reached like the next stage in, say, this rating, say I think a game is a little bit above average but not enough to go like all the way, I could say it's a 5.5 out of 10 or so. And that just means it's slightly above. I just don't think it's worthy of like a 6. So my rating for the game on my scale, based on my scale, is that it is a 9 out of 10. It is a very solid game. It is a game that, through all its promotional material and all that, usually I don't include that in my ratings and discussion. Sometimes, unless it's really bad. But Monster Hunter World, we were never like lied to. This is a great AAA game that we got, and everyone should take a look at from a marketing standpoint and everything else. That they didn't lie to us about anything. Everything we were shown, we got. Nothing was, bumped up graphics-wise for show. Like, what we've seen is what we got. And to me, the only thing that kind of holds it back from, say, being a 9.5 or a 10 is the fact that the story the first time is so bad to try and go through, especially if you're trying to play with friends. And again, it can be a large turnoff. And rather daunting for newer players, of course, with nothing being explained. And my only worries for the future of the game, again, if they could just keep up a steady stream of monsters. It depends on how quick they can get those on to, again, keep engagement going for some of the core to casual. I know some people don't like to have that side appeased, but it's kind of how it is. They're majority, and I'm not sure how much hardcore can keep going on based on these monsters, because those people just, man, they grinded this game. But that'll do it for me. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube-y stuff. And I got Twitter and everything down below if you want to follow for some more updates. I got a lot of games coming out in March. I got Sea of Thieves I'm going to try and cover. I got Far Cry 5. I don't know why everything's got to release at the end of March like it does. FML, to the max. And yeah, as always, you can come back over to Gaming House for more gameplay and commentary.